Have you ever finished a long day, sat on the edge of your bed, and felt quiet emptiness? Not screaming anxiety, not dramatic despair, just a soft, persistent voice that whispers, "This is all there is now." You're not broke. You're not in crisis. You have a routine, a paycheck, people who care about you on some level. Yet inside, something feels wrong. You look at your life and realize it has become small, predictable, safe, average. The dreams you once carried quietly faded. Not because life crushed them, but because you slowly stopped feeding them. Years slipped by while you told yourself later. And now the word, later, feels like a lie you keep telling yourself. That slow drift into mediocrity is one of the most painful things a human being can experience, because it doesn't hurt loudly. It just erodes you. If that dull ache is stirring in your chest right now, this video is for you. Stay with me. If anything in these next minutes resonates, even a little, please tap the like button. It tells YouTube to show this to more people who feel the same quiet frustration. And if you want reminders like this to help you stay awake and intentional, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's go deeper. Number 1, the comfort trap. Your nervous system was built for survival in a dangerous world. Comfort meant safety, dry shelter, enough food, no predators nearby. That ancient wiring still runs your decisions today. When you choose the couch over the gym, endless scrolling over deep reading, the familiar job over the uncertain venture, you're not being lazy. You're obeying a very old program that equates ease with life. But Marcus Aurelius lived in a palace surrounded by every comfort imaginable. Yet he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." Comfort is an outside event we chase like a drug, and every hit makes the next one feel more necessary. Over years, the mind becomes addicted to low friction and high friction. Growth, courage, creation starts to feel almost immoral. The psychology is brutally simple. The brain's reward system is wired for instant gratification far more than delayed reward. A notification ping gives dopamine faster than finishing a hard project. A sugary snack soothes faster than a cold shower and discipline. So we build lives optimized for micro comforts, then wonder why we feel hollow. Epictetus cut straight to it. If you wish to be good, first believe that you are evil. In other words, comfort feels good only because we have accepted mediocrity as the baseline. The moment you decide that average is no longer acceptable, comfort stops feeling like reward and starts feeling like slow poison. Take an honest inventory of your last 7 days. Count the hours spent in true service of your highest self. Deep, focused work, physical effort that hurts a little, honest conversations that require vulnerability, quiet reflection without distraction. For most people, that number is painfully small. The rest disappears into activities that feel urgent in the moment but leave no trace. Reacting to other people's drama, consuming content that numbs rather than sharpens, maintaining appearances instead of building substance. Seneca's most haunting line applies here. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it. We don't lose life to catastrophes. We lose it to comfort disguised as busyness. The average existence looks fine from the outside. Stable income, occasional vacations, no major scandals, but inside it ferments regret. You avoided the sting of starting something new, the embarrassment of sucking at first, the loneliness of walking a less crowded path. In exchange, you traded away the opposite feeling, the quiet pride of knowing you showed up fully for your own potential. Stoicism never promises a pain-free life. It promises a life where pain is chosen deliberately and therefore loses its power to control you. When you begin to welcome voluntary discomfort, rising before the sun feels ready, speaking truth when silence is easier, finishing what you said you would finish, comfort loses its throne. Here's a practical starting point that compounds. Every single day, identify one action your future self will thank you for, and that your present self actively resists. It can be small, 20 minutes of deliberate writing, 10 minutes of uncomfortable silence with your thoughts, one hard conversation you've been avoiding. Do it anyway. Feel the resistance rise, then feel it pass. Over weeks and months, this single habit rewires the deepest programming. Comfort stops being the default god and becomes just one option among many. You begin to taste freedom, not the freedom of having everything easy, but the far rarer freedom of no longer being owned by ease. The comfort trap is not evil in itself. Warm beds, good food, rest, these are gifts. The trap is unconscious surrender to them. The moment you see the choice clearly, I am choosing this comfort instead of this growth, power returns. Decide, calmly and without drama, that safety is no longer your highest value. Excellence, virtue, and inner sovereignty are. That single, quiet decision is the first crack in a wall that has kept you average. Everything else follows from there. Number 2, fear of failure. The deepest reason most people remain average is not lack of talent or opportunity. It is an unspoken terror of failing. Failure feels like evidence that you are defective, unworthy, fraudulently hopeful. So the mind invents 1,000 clever ways to never really try. I'm too busy right now. The timing isn't perfect. What if I embarrass myself? Yet every Stoic who ever lived understood failure differently. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Failure is not verdict, it is tuition. The price is discomfort and ego bruise. The return is wisdom, resilience, and forward motion. Avoiding it entirely guarantees you stay exactly where you are, safe, small, average. Modern psychology explains why the fear is so sticky. Most of us unconsciously fuse our identity with outcomes. One rejection becomes, I am rejectable. One public mistake becomes, I am a mistake. Epictetus dismantled this illusion 2,000 years ago. People are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. The event, losing a job, bombing a presentation, being ignored, is neutral. The suffering comes from a story we attach. This proves I'm not enough. When you practice separating event from interpretation, failure loses its venom. It becomes information instead of identity threat. Study any life that moved beyond ordinary. Every single one contains long stretches of failure. What made the difference was not avoiding falls. It was refusing to stay down. The average mind treats every stumble as final judgment. The awakened mind treats it as feedback. What worked? What didn't? What can I adjust? That simple loop is what compounds small efforts into extraordinary results over time. Staying average is choosing to never enter the loop at all. You protect the ego from pain, and in doing so starve the soul of growth. Peel back another layer. Most fear of failure is not really about the failure itself. It is dread of social judgment. They'll think I'm a loser, or self-judgment. I'll have to admit I'm not special. Stoicism removes both weapons. Focus only on what is yours to control. Your reasoned effort, your honest intention, your commitment to virtue. Other people's opinions, not yours. Ultimate outcome, not yours. When you truly internalize this, the fear evaporates. Not because failure disappears, but because its meaning changes. It can no longer define you. Practical medicine for this poison. Begin a deliberate practice of small, controlled failures. Post something honest online and risk being ignored or criticized. Apply for a role you're slightly underqualified for. Learn a skill in public where everyone can see your early incompetence. Feel the stomach drop, the face flush, the urge to hide. Then stay. Reflect afterward. What did I survive? What did I learn? Within months, the nervous system desensitizes. Failure becomes familiar, even boring. When it's no longer terrifying, it stops being a wall. It becomes a doorway. The real tragedy is not falling down. The real tragedy is never stepping onto the field because you're afraid of falling. Choose action, knowing full well you will stumble, many times. Each stumble is proof you are alive and trying. When you reach the end of your life, the sharpest regrets will not be the failures you experienced. They will be the attempts you never made. So the only thing you fear is looking back and seeing a life half-lived. Number 3, low expectations. A shocking number of people stay stuck simply because they expect almost nothing from themselves. I'm just an average person, they say, as though it's a neutral fact written in stone. But expectations are not passive observations. They are active prophecies. Low expectations create low effort, which produces low results, which confirms the original belief. It is a perfect closed loop. Marcus Aurelius did not wake before dawn because he felt inspired every morning. He did it because he expected excellence from himself as a rational human being capable of reason and discipline. He set the bar high privately, and his behavior followed. Psychological research keeps rediscovering what the Stoics knew intuitively. Human performance rises to meet internal standards. When good enough becomes the ceiling, average becomes the floor, and then the only thing you'll ever know. Raise the standard quietly, even if no one else sees it. Tell yourself, I am capable of showing up with courage today. I am capable of finishing what I start. I am capable of speaking truth, even when it costs me comfort. The mind does not argue long against clear, repeated assertion backed by action. It begins to obey. Low expectations often masquerade as maturity or realism. I'm just being practical, people say while settling for jobs that drain them, relationships that diminish them, habits that slowly erode them. Seneca saw through this centuries ago. We are tormented alike by what is past and what is to come. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Low expectations are imagination disguised as realism. They make everything feel inevitable when in truth it is chosen. Chosen daily, hourly, in the small permissions we give ourselves to do less. Turn the lens inward for a moment. Listen to your internal narrator. Do you excuse procrastination with "I'm too tired"? Do you accept shallow connections because that's just how adults are? Do you avoid hard conversations because it's not worth the drama? These are not facts, they are quiet surrenders. Stoicism demands relentless questioning of every excuse. If it cannot stand up to calm scrutiny, it is not truth, it is comfort wearing a mask. Strip the mask away. Concrete shift to break the cycle. Choose one domain: physical health, intellectual growth, moral integrity, creative output, and set a standard that feels slightly uncomfortable. Not impossible, just high enough to require real effort. Guard it like a sacred boundary. When you fall short, and you will, do not lower the bar to match your current behavior. Raise your behavior to meet the bar. 1% better each week compounds in a transformation most people never experience because they never demand it of themselves. You are not born to be average. Average is not your nature. It is a habit you adopted through repeated low bids on your own life. Stop bidding low. Demand more. Not for applause, not for Instagram, but for the silent dignity of knowing you lived up to the rational, virtuous being you are capable of becoming. That single shift in expectation changes everything. The ordinary days stop being ordinary. They become the quiet forging of something unbreakable. Number 4, the distraction economy. We remain average not because we lack big dreams, but because we allow our attention to be chopped into tiny, meaningless pieces every day. Notifications, trending topics, comment section battles, 30-second videos, reactive email checking. The modern world is engineered to fragment focus. Seneca called this the greatest robbery of all. Life is long if you know how to use it, but most men are so busy being busy that they never live. We fill every crack of silence with noise, then wonder why we feel restless and empty even when we're never truly alone. The psychology is predatory. Tech companies discovered that intermittent variable rewards, likes, replies, new posts, hijack the same dopamine pathways as slot machines. We keep pulling the lever because the next it might come. But unlike a slot machine, the house always wins. Your time, your mental clarity, your potential. Stoicism's antidote is ruthless control of attention. Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to. If you give it to triviality, you become trivial. If you give it to what is good, true, and lasting, you become good, true, and lasting." Perform a brutal audit. How many hours yesterday went to things completely outside your control? Other people's opinions, global news cycles you cannot influence, strangers' drama, algorithm-fed entertainment. Those hours are gone forever. They are not neutral. They are opportunity cost. Every distracted minute is a minute not spent building skill, deepening relationships, clarifying values, training the body, or facing yourself honestly. Over a decade, that cost becomes staggering. Most people never calculate it, because facing the number hurts more than continuing the distraction. At the root, distraction is avoidance behavior. Sitting still and asking, "Who am I becoming?" is uncomfortable. Doing work that might fail is uncomfortable. Feeling the full weight of your own choices is uncomfortable. So we flee into the phone, into busyness, into anything that keeps the mind occupied without forcing it to grow. But the Stoic path runs straight through discomfort. Voluntary simplicity, fewer inputs, deeper attention, creates space where real change can happen. Distraction fills that space, so nothing ever changes. Practical reclamation. Design deliberate empty space every day. No phone for the first 90 minutes after waking. No multitasking during important work. One task at full attention. Evening review. What did I give my attention to today? Did it serve my highest good? Protect your attention the way a medieval king protected his castle, because it is your most valuable territory. Once reclaimed, it becomes the foundation for everything else. Discipline, creativity, wisdom, presence. Life is rarely stolen by one dramatic event. It is nibbled away by 10,000 small permissions to look away. Stop giving permission. Choose focus, not because it's easy, but because it is honorable. In that choice, you stop being a passenger in your own existence. You become the driver again. And slowly, day by deliberate day, the average life you once accepted becomes something far rarer. A life deliberately lived. Number 5. Lack of self-examination. The deepest root of staying stuck is almost never examined. We drift through decades on autopilot, repeating patterns we never chose, becoming people we never decided to be. Socrates, whose spirit runs through all Stoicism, gave the famous warning: the unexamined life is not worth living. Without regular, unflinching self-review, small compromises harden into character. One skipped workout becomes a lifestyle. One half-truth becomes a habit. One postponed dream becomes a permanent someday. Over time, the person you are no longer resembles the person you once hoped to become. And most never notice until it is too late. Neuroscience confirms what the Stoics practiced intuitively. The vast majority of our behavior is automatic, governed by neural pathways laid down through repetition. We don't decide to scroll. The hand moves before the mind registers. We don't decide to procrastinate. The pattern fires faster than conscious choice. Mediocrity thrives in that unconscious space. The only escape is deliberate awareness, daily confrontation with reality. Marcus Aurelius did not keep his famous meditations for posterity. He kept them to stay awake to himself, to prevent autopilot from taking the wheel. Without examination, drift is inevitable. You don't wake up one morning average. You arrive there through 10,000 tiny, unexamined permissions. Just this once, I'll start tomorrow. It's not that important. Each permission feels harmless in isolation. Together, they build a life you never signed up for. The tragedy is not malice. It is unconsciousness. Most people do not fail at life. They simply sleep through it. The Stoic practice is brutally simple and infinitely powerful. End each day with honest review. Marcus asked himself variations of these questions. What did I do today that aligned with virtue? Where did I fall short of reason? What temptation did I follow instead of resist? What can I correct tomorrow? No self-flagellation, just clear-eyed clarity. This nightly habit interrupts autopilot. It turns vague guilt into precise understanding. Understanding becomes agency. Agency becomes change. Make it practical and sustainable. Set aside 5 to 10 minutes before sleep. Use a notebook or voice memo, whatever lowers the friction. Write or speak 3 things. One action you took that moved you forward. One moment you fell below your own standard. One adjustment for tomorrow. No performance, no audience, just truth between you and yourself. Over months, the patterns reveal themselves clearly. Where fear hides, where laziness disguises itself as fatigue, where distraction pretends to be rest. Once seen, they lose power. You stop being a victim of habit and become its editor. Awakening does not require fireworks. It requires attention. You are not cursed to remain average. You are simply asleep to your own capacity for reason, discipline, and virtue. Wake up through daily examination. See clearly. Act deliberately. Over time, the ordinary hours stop being ordinary. They become the quiet, patient construction of a soul that no longer drifts, because it finally knows where it wants to go. That is not glamour. That is not fame. That is the Stoic victory, a life no longer lived by accident, but by choice. Number 6. Comparison and external validation. One of the surest ways to lock yourself into an average existence is to constantly measure your life against the lives of others. Social media, casual conversations, even family gatherings become mirrors that distort. You see someone's highlight reel, new car, promotion, perfect vacation, and immediately feel diminished. The mind whispers, they have it figured out. You don't. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily in his private journal. Another does this? Let him look to it. You have your own work to do. Comparison is not observation. It is surrender. You hand the yardstick of your worth to people whose standards, struggles, and contexts you cannot fully know. In doing so, you abandon the only true measure that matters: how closely your actions align with your own reasoned principles. Psychologically, this habit exploits our social wiring. Humans evolved in small tribes where status signaled survival. Being seen as capable mattered. Today, that instinct misfires. We compare not to survive, but to soothe insecurity. The dopamine from winning, the comparison is fleeting. The deflation from losing lingers. Epictetus saw this clearly. We are disturbed not by things, but by our opinions about them. The opinion here is that someone else's external success invalidates your internal progress. Until you reject that opinion, you remain tethered to averages defined by crowds rather than by virtue. You chase their milestones instead of forging your own path. The deeper cost is subtle but devastating. When your motivation depends on outpacing others, it collapses the moment you encounter someone further ahead, or when no one is watching. Discipline becomes performative. Effort becomes conditional. True growth requires intrinsic fire, doing the right thing because it is right, not because it impresses. Seneca warned against living for applause. The applause of the crowd is fickle and worthless. Yet most people build their self-image on exactly that applause. When it fades, and it always does, motivation fades with it, leaving you stuck in the middle ground where effort feels pointless. Look around honestly. How much of your day is spent scrolling, envying, judging, or seeking validation? Each glance outward pulls energy inward away from what you actually control: your choices, your character, your daily practice. Stoicism flips the gaze inward first. Ask, am I living in accordance with nature and reason today? If yes, no external scoreboard can diminish you. If no, no amount of being better than someone else can redeem you. The comparison game is rigged against inner peace. Only self-measurement offers freedom. Practical antidote: impose a strict inward audit daily. For 1 week, ban all comparison triggers. No social media first thing. No gossip about others' wins or losses. Replace them with evening questions. Did I act with courage today? With justice? With temperance? With wisdom? Rate yourself privately on those 4 Stoic virtues alone. No one else's input. Over time, this rewires the mind. External validation loses urgency, because internal congruence becomes the only currency that matters. You stop chasing averages and start building excellence on your own terms. In the end, the tragedy of comparison is not that you fall short of others. It is that you fall short of yourself while staring at their shadows. Reclaim your measure. Let others live their lives. You live yours with quiet, unshakable fidelity to what is good. That single reorientation pulls you out of the crowd's median and into the rare air of deliberate, virtuous living. No one can take that from you, and no one needs to give it. Number 7, avoidance of responsibility. Perhaps the most pervasive reason people remain stuck in average is the refusal to take full responsibility for their own character and path. It is easier, far easier, to blame circumstances, upbringing, the economy, bad luck, other people's actions, or even society than to admit, this life is the sum of my choices up to now. Epictetus opened his handbook with the sharpest line in philosophy. Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Most people expand the not up to us category endlessly while shrinking the up to us to almost nothing. In doing so, they surrender agency, and with it any chance of rising above mediocrity. Psychologically, blame is a defense mechanism. Accepting responsibility means facing painful truths. I chose comfort over challenge. I chose distraction over discipline. I chose resentment over reflection. That confrontation hurts. Blame externalizes the pain. It's not me. It's them / the system / the past. The short-term relief is immense, but the long-term price is stagnation. You cannot change what you refuse to own. Seneca observed that we rage against fortune while ignoring our own faults, the very faults that invited misfortune. True power begins the moment you stop pointing outward and start pointing inward. Examine any area where you feel stuck. Career plateau. Ask, did I consistently sharpen my skills? Seek feedback. Take calculated risks. Relationships faltering. Ask, have I practiced patience, honesty, and presence? Or have I withdrawn into self-protection? Health declining? Ask, have I prioritized sleep, movement, and nourishment? Or have I let convenience rule? In almost every case, the external story, life is unfair, crumbles under calm scrutiny. The Stoics did not deny hardship. They denied that hardship alone determines outcome. What determines it is how you respond, and response is always yours. The average life is built on 1,000 small abdications of responsibility. I'll start tomorrow. It's too late now. No one gave me a chance. Each is a quiet handover of control. Over years, these handovers compound into a life that feels imposed rather than chosen. Marcus Aurelius, emperor amid war, plague, and betrayal, still wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." He owned his responses even when the world gave him every excuse not to. That ownership is what separates the stuck from the free. Practical reclamation. Adopt the responsibility ritual. Each evening, for one key area of frustration, write 3 sentences. 1. What external factors played a role? Acknowledge reality. 2. What was truly in my control that I did not do? Own the gap honestly. 3. What small action can I take tomorrow to reclaim that control? Act immediately. No self-pity, no exaggeration, just facts. This habit erodes blame's comfort and replaces it with agency. Within weeks, you notice momentum. Problems stop feeling like walls and start feeling like puzzles you can solve. Responsibility is not burden, it is liberation. When you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing what is yours to change, the average life loses its grip. You become the author again, not of every event, but of your soul's response to every event. That authorship is the essence of Stoic freedom. No external force can grant it, and no external force can revoke it. Claim it today, and watch how the ordinary transforms, not in a spectacle, but into something far more enduring, a life lived on your own sovereign terms. You now stand at the edge of a simple but profound truth. The life you call average is not a sentence handed down by fate, the world, or your past. It is the cumulative result of thousands of small, mostly unconscious choices. To seek comfort over courage, to fear failure more than you crave growth, to accept low expectations as realism, to let distractions steal your attention, to avoid honest self-examination, to measure yourself against others instead of your own reason, and to blame everything except your own power of response. The Stoics did not escape hardship. They escaped the illusion that hardship controls them. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet still reminded himself each morning that the only thing truly his was his judgment and will. Epictetus, once a slave, taught that freedom begins inside the mind. You carry the same power. The gap between where you are and where you could be is not talent, luck, or opportunity. It is the daily decision to stop drifting and start directing. So let this be the moment the drift ends. Not with grand gestures or overnight transformation, but with one deliberate, uncomfortable choice today. Pick the single idea from these outlines that stung the most, the one that felt like it was written just for you. Do the hard thing your future self will thank you for. Rise early. Speak the truth. Finish what you started. Sit in silence without escape. Take responsibility without excuse. Feel the resistance rise, then let it pass. Tomorrow, do it again. In that quiet repetition lies everything the Stoics promised. Not a life free of difficulty, but a life no longer ruled by it. You are not destined to remain average. You are destined only to become what you consistently choose to be. Choose better, starting now. The rest will follow.